Welcome into another edition of Full Court Press. I'm your host, Courtney Mims, and you love this guy. I had to bring him back again. You guys keep saying we love Coach Mims. So here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Billy Mims, back for another episode of Full Court Press. And Dad, I'm so excited to have you on the show once again. We're going to talk about that Vanderbilt win in just a second. But first, we do have some big news that came out today regarding the Arkansas men's basketball program. Coach Cal has been teasing for quite some time that, look, we're being invited back to playing the CBS Thanksgiving Classic once again. They played Illinois this past season there, but they said, he was like, look, we're going to go back and the opponent's going to be even bigger. And so everyone's going, who can it be? Who can it be? Well, we found out today they're going to play Duke in the CBS Thanksgiving Classic on Thanksgiving Day this November.
And guess what?
Okay. What?
From all indications right now, Cooper Flagg will be back for another season.
And that's a matchup I want to see, a Cooper Flagg Duke team going up against Arkansas. And we'll see who comes back for Arkansas, right? Because that could be really interesting if we see some guys come back. I know, but with Adu Thero being out right now, the whole question is, does he come back? Maybe. Let's see. But we'll get into all of that. Dad, I do want to say right off the bat here for the viewers, you made a prediction last time you were on the show, and I thought it was crazy. But then I thought, well, it could be right. It could be right because it was getting to be that point where I was like, okay, Arkansas beat Missouri, Arkansas beat Texas. Could it be right that they went 5-0 in these last 5 regular season games? Well, you know who ruined it for you? Your South Carolina Gamecocks. They ruined it for you. They ruined that prediction. And that game, very uncharacteristic for the Hogs. I know you watched it, and people were asking me what your dad texted you. They were like, Courtney, what's your dad saying about this game? I said, my dad said this is one of the worst halves of basketball he's ever seen.
Listen, I know I'm from South Carolina. I grew up a Gamecock fan.
Yep.
But right now, my heart lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
It does. It does.
And therefore, I'm woo pig suey right now. But they let me down because I'm telling you, my 5-0, 20-11 into the NCAA tournament, that was spot on. But the Razorbacks absolutely did not show up for the first half in Columbia, South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if they spent from whatever time they had their team dinner the night before the game, right after the team dinner, Coach Cal thought they checked into their hotel room. They all went to 5 points. They thought Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish were back in 5 points performing, and they all went down there all night long because, Courtney, 14 points in 20 minutes by a team that's going to the NCAA tournament, unheard of. 3 for 24 shooting in the first half, 12.5% shooting. I'm sorry. They could have done that blindfolded.
Yep.
3 for 24, 14 points, abysmal first half performance. Now, they did play much better in the second half, but the old saying, it's one thing to come back in a game, it's another thing to come back and win.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And that performance so bad. I think I read that stat, Dad, that it was the worst half of Arkansas basketball this century. You had to go to last century. This century. That's crazy.
When people were scoring 14 points in a Division I half, James Naismith was still alive.
Yeah.
The founder of the game was probably sitting courtside watching when they were scoring 14 points and a half.
You're not wrong.
I kind of thought it might have been the worst first half performance in Arkansas history.
Yeah.
3 field goals in 20 minutes of basketball. I guarantee you, Coach Calipari thought it was a dream. It wasn't reality. Pinch me, wake me up. I've never seen this in my college basketball life. It wasn't just a dream for Cal. It was a nightmare.
It was. That's why he said after the game, burn the tape, I said, throw it off a cliff. I said, run over it with a semi-truck. You aren't going to learn anything about your team from that performance? Hopefully it was a one-off, really. Hopefully it was just a bad game. You have those, I mean, a horrible game. You have those, I guess. But hopefully it was, right? Hopefully we don't see that performance moving forward. And we definitely didn't see it against Vanderbilt. That was a team that looked like Arkansas basketball that we had seen, the team against Texas and the team that beat Missouri. We saw that team come alive against the Vanderbilt Commodores on the road in Nashville. That was a quad one win for them. They beat them 90-77. And Dad, I do want to ask you about this because in your coaching life, you have probably seen, and I know you have, not even probably, you have seen guys who have gone down with injuries, season-ending injuries, that come back and maybe are not themselves, that maybe take a little while to get back to the player that they were before. And you could kind of say that about Trevon Brazile because he just hasn't looked like the player that we've seen him be or can be when he was playing, back in 2022 before that season-ending injury. The guy that was dunking it like crazy that LeBron James was posting about him. You have to go back to 2022 to see that Trevon Brazile. But you saw him in this game against Vanderbilt, the first double-double of the season for Trevon Brazile with 16 points and 14 rebounds. He just looked incredible. And so do you think as a coach that it was a lot mental for him? Because he can do it. He's shown he can be that player. So where do you think was the disconnect for him earlier on?
Well, I think it's always a process. And, and a lot of coaches tell their players, embrace the process. And everything about college athletics, college sports is a process, right? Coach Cal is in his first year at Arkansas. It's a new coach, a lot of new players, a new team, a new home, a new facility, new fans. It's a process. Well, the same thing is true when a player has a season-ending injury. Coming back from that injury is a process. And I think Trevon has been going through that process all season. And sometimes that process can be a smooth road. Sometimes it's a bumpy road. For Trevon, it's been a bit of a bumpy road. I mean, come on. In the South Carolina game, he started that game because he hasn't been starting a lot of games.
No.
But with Thero out, they don't have much choice. Trevon, they got to go to Trevon. Yeah. He started against South Carolina and was an abysmal 0 for 4. And what's even worse about that, Courtney, he was 0 for 3 from 3.
Ooh.
What is he doing shooting threes? Okay?
Yeah.
LeBron James was texting, was posting on social media about him dunking the ball.
Yes.
Not about him shooting threes.
No.
Okay? Now, saying that, he did knock down 3 threes against Vanderbilt. But he also dominated the paint against Vanderbilt as well. Inside, his 14 rebounds, 4 on the offensive end, 10 on the defensive end. He dominated the paint. And guess what? Because of that Trevon Brazile presence in the paint against Vanderbilt, the Hogs won the points in the paint 48-26, mainly due to a guy named Trevon Brazile. He created those inside scoring opportunities, domination of the paint, on the glass, and when he had a chance to score between the blocks, he put it away. So I think it's been a bumpy road for him. But now, after a great game inside and outside, 3 for 5 behind the arc against Vanderbilt. So a great game for Trevon inside and outside and on the glass. I think you'll see a much more confident Trevon Brazile the rest of the season as they go into the NCAA, well, first into the SEC tournament, then my prediction in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you've been very vocal about this team being in the NCAA tournament. Before we get to that, Dad, I will give a mention because we gave a lot of love to Trevon Brazile, and that's because so many fans wanted to see this side of him. So many fans were going, we know you can do it. We've seen what you can do. And so did Coach Cal. Coach Cal came in the press conference and said, it's been a bumpy road for him. So I'm really happy to see him, to see the Trevon that we all know can do that and show up like that. They're going to need him moving forward. But what I also like to see is that the score, they didn't just get a contribution from him. Nelly Davis put up 21 points. You had Zvonimir Ivicic with 14. You had Carter Knox who had 10. You had DJ Wagner with 14 points. You had Billy Richmond with 8 and Jonas Adu with 7. I mean, there wasn't a guy on the stat sheet that wasn't contributing in some way. And to me, that was really good to see because on any given night, Coach Callis talked about, look, we're down Boogie Flant. Now we're down Adu Thero, our leading scorer. Right. And so we have to have, it's not going to be one guy steps up. It's not going to be one guy just has an incredible game. We're going to need it from everybody. And so that was the team. That was the kind of team performance that you wanted to see from the Arkansas Razorbacks because that's going to help them moving forward.
Well, you know, Coach Cal was exactly right. And again, he's a great coach, Hall of Famer. You know, he's been around he's won everywhere he's been. His comment there, you're talking about somebody stepping up, right? And no, it's got to be from everybody. He's absolutely 100% right because guess what? They don't have a Boogie Fland on the bench. When Boogie went down, you can't just whistle down the bench. Hey, Boogie number 2, come in now. They were on the bench because they're not Boogie Fland. Now you got Adu Thero out, right? And so there's not another Thero on the bench, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a substitute being forced into starting minutes. And you're talking about he's lost his best guard, his best post player, the best outside player, the best inside player. Yeah. So, I mean, that's about as bad as it can get. But how about this one, Courtney?
Okay.
They played 7 players in that game. Mm-hmm. And right, we keep talking about depth. Well, they should be at least 9 deep right now.
Nope.
But they've lost 2 starters.
Right.
So now they're 7 deep. They've got 2 subs as starters now, and their bench is thin. They only have 2 more guys. They played 7 players in the Vanderbilt game, and 5 of the 7 scored in double figures, but the 2 off the bench scored 8. Billy Richmond III, 8 points,
yep.
And Jonas Adu, 7 points off the bench.
Yeah.
So if you look at that, right, they almost had all 7 players in double figures.
Yeah.
That's what Cal's talking about. Everybody has to step up. It's a team effort. 5 of the 7 in double figures, the other 2 were 1 basket away from double figures. All 7 players quite easily could have scored in double figures in that game. And I think that shows a true team effort for the Hogs.
And they're going to need that because here's the thing. You finish the regular season at home against Mississippi State. And look, say what you will about the entire SEC, we know how tough it is to compete in this league. That's why right now everyone's going, how many SEC teams are actually going to be in the tournament? Are they going to get 13, 14 in? Because right now, I mean, Joe Lunardi, it looks like there actually could be a scenario where you've got 14 teams in the tournament. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But Mississippi State, it won't be just a cakewalk. They've been playing well here down the stretch as well as just like every other SEC team. And they're, projected to be in the tournament, a lock from Joe Lunardi. So they're good. Arkansas still fighting for their lives. Now, I know some people feel a little bit more comfortable after that Vanderbilt win, and they should feel more comfortable. But you want to go and beat Mississippi State at home to finish your season, A, on a good note heading into the SEC tournament, right? It's always good to have that momentum. But B, to make sure that you are good, that they don't give you any reason. They look at that regular season schedule. They look at how you did in your regular season. They go, yep, that's a team that should be in the NCAA tournament. Do you agree with that? Because a lot of people go and say, well, the SEC tournament. You don't want it to come down to what you need to do in the SEC tournament. You want it to come down to, look, Arkansas is a lock because of how they showed up at the end of the year. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because this is a record-setting year. It's a record-setting year for the SEC. You just said a moment ago, Joe Lunardi they could have 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. That's unheard of, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is Goliath, and everybody else is David, okay? That's unheard of conference-wise, right? I mean, I grew up on Tobacco Road. I grew up in the Carolinas, an ACC fan, right?
Yeah.
I grew up watching Dean Smith coach the Tar Heels. I remember David Thompson, Monty Tao, Tom Burleson winning the NCAA championship for the North Carolina State Wolfpack. So I'm an ACC guy growing up on Tobacco Road. But even the ACC never had 14 teams in the
No,
NCAA tournament.
no.
So you're talking about what could be a record setting year. And I believe that it's possible. But what will make it possible is for a few of the teams. Here's my opinion: the top 10 teams in the SEC right now are in.
Yeah,
Joe Lunardi's got those guys. He's right. They're in.
yeah,
So they could lose the first game in the SEC tournament. They're going to keep playing the following week.
sure.
They're in March Madness, okay? The bottom, the next four, teams 11 through 14, no matter how they finish the regular season, that helps. That does help. And look at Arkansas. If I'm right, okay, and they do beat Mississippi State to finish the home, they only made one little mess up.
They
That's a
did.
big one.
Yeah,
I say little, it's a big one because you lost bad. It's a bad loss for them. You lost bad to the worst team in the SEC.
yeah.
That's a little bump on your path to the NCAA tournament. But again, a big win against Mississippi State at home to end the regular season. They would go winning 4 out of their last 5 games. And what did they do right before that stretch? They took Alabama to the wire.
Yeah.
They took Auburn to the wire. And if remember at that time, Auburn and Alabama were 1-2 in the nation.
Yep.
So they went toe to toe, with the number 1, number 2 ranked team in the country, and almost upset both of those teams.
Mm-hmm.
Down the stretch, Arkansas definitely has played like an NCAA tournament team with that one blemish, the bad loss at South Carolina when everybody was out at 5 points listening to Hootie and the Blowfish the night before. But I'll say this: teams 11, 12, 13, 14 in the SEC, they need a win in the SEC tournament.
Okay.
They need a win. They need a signature win. They need to enhance their resume because Joe Lunardi's saying the right things. But for that selection committee to make the choice to put an unprecedented, never before 13, 14 teams from the SEC in the NCAA tournament, they need a little resume improvement.
Okay.
And that means a run in the SEC tournament.
I mean, they're going to be fighting for that, though. I mean, if you're saying they need, those teams are going to be fighting for it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the tournament because not everybody can you lose and you're done. And so there might need to be it might be a mini March Madness in the SEC tournament, right? Mini March Madness, because you might get some upsets of teams that you're going, oh my gosh, they've been knocked out and you thought they were going to be playing in the championship game. It could be very interesting who comes out on top in this SEC tournament. Could be very
But remember,
interesting.
if you're a true fan of the SEC, it doesn't hurt the conference for the top 4 to lose early in the SEC tournament.
I know, and it wouldn't be
I'm
bad
gonna
for
say
those teams. Yeah.
Historically, right? March Madness, NCAA tournament-wise, historically, there have been some great teams go on to win the national championship after an early exit from their conference tournament.
And there's a whole mentality, too, on the coaching side of things. And Dave Van Horn talks about this with SEC baseball, where it's almost like you don't want to keep winning in those tournaments because you'd rather take the rest. And if you know you're good and you know you're going to make a regional, right, you'd rather take the rest and make sure your guys don't get hurt and keep your legs fresh and all of that. I mean, there could be the same mentality,
Remember, if you unless you go to the first 4,
No.
right, in Dayton,
Yeah.
unless you go to the first 4, there's 64 team tournament after that. The 68 team tournament if you count the first 4. So unless you go to the first 4, you need 6 wins in a row to claim that trophy and be the national champion. Now, if you won your conference tournament as well, and you won your last couple of games of the regular season, you're talking about a team that's got to go on like a 12, 13, 14, 15 game winning streak against some of the best teams in America with the pressure on. That is tough to do. That's why a lot of great coaches have said, I don't mind. I know we're going to be a number one seed, even if I get knocked out of my conference tournament
Right,
early.
right.
So what? Right now, the number one seeds, the four number one seeds, are probably already determined.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and two of those are going to be SEC teams.
Yeah.
It looks like Auburn and Tennessee are shoe-ins for number one seeds. Okay, possibly.
Maybe
Okay,
maybe Florida. Maybe Florida.
yeah. Florida put on a good show
Come
again
on.
last night.
Come on, maybe Florida.
Again, I'm not a Gator believer yet. I'm not a Gator hater, but I'm not a
Not
Gator
a Gator
believer. And
believer.
I'll tell you why. Because their resume in the SEC is very good. Very good. Their non-conference quality of opposition, not quite as good as some of the other top teams in the SEC.
I get
So
that.
they had some wins that they bought, some bought wins. Hey, they beat some teams that they're supposed to beat badly, but their quality of competition in their non-conference preseason performances not as good. So I think that hurts them a little bit for a number one seed. Surely they're going to be a two
Oh,
seed,
yeah.
at worst case a three seed,
Yeah.
but they're going to be a two or three seed easily, no matter what
Oh, yeah.
happens the
Yeah.
rest of the way. But number one seed, I think, is hurt by their non-conference quality of opposition. Now, saying all of that, right?
Okay.
Saying all of that, I look back at Arkansas and I remember this is an Arkansas team that beat Michigan
Yeah.
in Madison Square Garden
Correct.
when they were
Yeah.
pretty highly ranked.
Yes.
This is an Arkansas team that has had to face more top-ranked teams than a lot of teams in America that are getting high consideration right now. You look at the body of work by the Razorbacks, and I also feel that even though they lost Boogie Flan early on, and that was a major, major loss for this team, and now late they've lost Thero, right?
Yeah.
If you look at that, if you're on the selection committee and see that, and you see how well this team has continued to play,
Yeah.
and how they have met the obstacles that the bad luck that they've had along the way. So what? They've faced it. They've gone over it. They've actually kicked down the wall, the obstacle in front of them. They kicked it down, and they have, as a team, they've actually gotten better
Yeah.
as the season went on. So I said they were going to be 20-11 on a 5-game winning streak. Okay, they're going to be 19-12.
Okay,
winning
all right.
4 out of 5. But I still can't believe the one mishap was against the worst team in the league.
Hey,
So,
look, you're expecting them to beat Mississippi State, which I appreciate. That you're still going with that. They're going to be 4-1 rather than you're saying they're going to beat Mississippi State there, right? You're saying that they're going to finish the season on a win.
19-12 is their final record. They're going to get win number 20 in the SEC tournament.
I love it. Oh, and a win in the SEC tournament. Ooh,
Well,
the
you know what I also
predictions.
feel like with this group? You saw 7 guys step on the court against Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
All 7 of those guys performed well. You gotta like everything that they got. Their whole starting 5 in double figures. The 2 guys that came off the bench, almost both in double figures. 7 players contributed to that win. 7 played, 7 helped win that game. It's almost like a mentality now of, yeah, we lost our 2 best players. But you know what? It's us against the world right now. They truly are forming that sort of mentality that
Yeah.
says, against all odds, we can do it. And I think teams like that going into postseason play are tough teams to beat. I also think that when you go into postseason play, I actually am a coach that believes it's better to have limited options. It's better to say, we can only play 6 or 7 guys tonight because you're not going to be making changes as often as you normally would.
Yeah.
And the players that know they're in that 6 or 7 rotation, they know they're going to play. They know they're going to play a good bit. And they're not worried about making mistakes now. They're going out there saying, hey, it's on us. It's us 7. And a lot of times teams will say, we're going to go play 7 against 8 because it's our 7 players. That's all we got.
That's all they
We're going
got.
to we're going to beat their best 5 and the 3 referees.
Nice. Oh, best 5 and the 3 referee. That's a real coach's statement right there, Dad. That's a real coach's statement. Well, I like your prediction. I'd like to see them finish the regular season on a good note, keep the momentum going, right? Wash that bad loss out of their brains, end the season with a win over Mississippi State, and then go into the tournament. Like you said, if they can win one game in the tournament, I think they're going to feel really good about their chances of getting into the NCAA tournament. And at that point, they're not worried about playing a play-in game, right? That's the other thing too, is like they want to avoid playing the play-in game. They want to be one of those 64. And I'm telling you right now, Dad, if they're one of those 64, I do not want to be the other team on the other side of the bracket against them in that first round. I will tell you that. I just wouldn't want to be. I'm going to make that prediction right now.
Well, here's my other thought on that, and I agree with you completely, right? My other thought on that is, if there are going to be some SEC teams that get into the tournament that are going to be lower seeds in the tournament.
Yes.
But then you saw what those lower seeded SEC teams did in their own league against the top seeds in March Madness. So I don't know if I'd like to be a higher seeded team from another conference, and my first round game is going to be against a low seeded SEC team.
Nope.
To me, that's a bad draw.
Nope.
So I'm saying, oh, great, we got a nice seeding. Oh, we're the number 5 seed. So the 5 is going to play the 12, right?
Right.
And in the bracket, we're a 5 seed. We're going to play the 12 seed. If you're looking at your March Madness brackets, let me give all the listeners a hint right now.
Okay.
When you go down, look at those 5 seeds and 4 seeds. If the 12 or 13 they're playing is any SEC team, pick the upset.
There you go. That's good. That's good advice right there. I think everyone's with you on that advice. If they watch any SEC basketball this season, they will know that. They will know to pick that 5-12 upset, that 4-13 upset, right?
There always seems to be an upset in that part of the bracket.
It is.
This year, it quite easily could be that the 12th or 13th seed would be a strong SEC team.
Absolutely.
That the only reason they're not a higher seed is because they had to battle night in and night out against the best teams in the country, in the best league in the country this season.
You just hope they're not worn out by the time the NCAA tournament comes. You just hope that because they've had to play a gauntlet of conference play, you just hope that they're not worn out, which is why I think it goes into the point of, if you're Tennessee, if you're Florida, any of those teams that know they're a lock for the NCAA tournament, if you lose in the SEC tournament, you're not that worried about it. You're not that worried about it. You're okay. You can just breathe and get some rest up before March Madness in the NCAA tournament. Thank you so much for coming on the show once again, Dad. I appreciate you. Do you have any, last time you gave us a prediction, but is your prediction that they're going to beat Mississippi State and that they're going to win a game in the SEC tournament? And they're going to.
I believe that, obviously, I have no idea who they're going to play in the SEC tournament.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
But I believe they're going to win that last home game.
Okay.
Because there are going to be a lot of great Razorback fans cheering them on in Bud Walton.
Oh,
and
yeah.
BWA has got to be one of the toughest places in college basketball to play.
It is. You're
talking about Duke and Arkansas facing off next year at Thanksgiving, CBS Thanksgiving game, right?
Yeah.
Duke has been to Bud Walton Arena.
Oh, yeah, they know what it's like. 2023. You remember that? You were texting me. I was part of that atmosphere. And I'm telling you, if you were not in that arena that day, you were missing out. That was one of the best college basketball atmospheres I have ever been a part of. And can you believe, Dad, that Arkansas and Duke have only matched up 5 times? And they have a storied history together. They have a storied history, but it's only 5 matchups. Only 5. And so
Some were some big games. Some very big games. NCAA tournament game.
Yeah, championship game. How about that? Yeah, I think let's call up Nolan. He remembers that game, right? So, anyways.
I was watching that game. I promise you. I was watching that game as a very young basketball fan. And I'll be honest, to all the Arkansas fans, I am not saying this because Courtney Mims is a Razorback now. I'm not saying this because you live in Fayetteville.
No.
But I remember watching that game. I loved Nolan Richardson's 40 minutes of hell. I loved his team. I loved the way they played. I promise you, I was saying woo pig suey. I was a Razorback fan for that national championship game that they won.
Guys, he's not lying. When I first got this job here, I remember you saying, "Oh, have fun with basketball. Have fun covering basketball. That's a great program." And I remember you saying that. So when I got this job, and that still holds true today. But Dad, thank you so much. We're gonna have you on for the postseason as well. You know that, right?
Well, let's hope it's a long postseason.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind meeting up with you in San Antonio
Oh,
at the Final Four, because I'll be there.
I know you will.
And if the Razorbacks could find a way to get there, it'd be a lot of fun to do full court press with Courtney Mims and her dad live in San Antonio.
That's definitely going to happen if they can get there. So Coach Cal, come on. We need this to happen, not because it would be just awesome to make the Final Four, because a full court press live from San Antonio with Coach Mims and myself, we got to do it. We got to do it. We just have to make it happen. Dad, we'll see if they can do the impossible, I think is what a lot of fans would say right there. But hey, it's crazier things have happened, especially when it comes to March Madness, and it is March. Also, before we let you go, Dad, I want to say happy early birthday. I know it's your birthday tomorrow, so I wanted to just say happy early birthday. So let us know in the comments. Give Coach Mims a birthday shout out if you want to. That'd be great. But happy birthday, Dad.
Thank you, Courtney.
All right.
Couldn't imagine any better way to celebrate it than the night before being on full court press with you.
Oh, well, that's so sweet. Thanks, Dad. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Full Court Press. We'll see you next week for more basketball coverage.